my curiosity of psychology and development and human behavior extended my shelf life in sales. But even that, I still hit a wall. I still had these, is this all there is moments? And it sounds like that's kind of where you're at now, right? Is, what's life after sales, or what's the next chapter of sales? All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Undeniable One-on-One. This is a series dedicated to remote sales professionals where we break free from the generic one-size-fits-all training to really showcase the power of personalized mentorship and counterintuitive advice. And I couldn't be more excited. We have a very, very special guest joining us today. Not only is he one of the first people inducted into the UCM Hall of Fame, I mean, come on, but he's also a perfect example of why it's so important to carve your own path in this space and not just be a follower. Alvaro came to me as an opera singer and a music teacher. Not a lot of transferable skills from opera to remote sales. He had no sales background, but from the very beginning, I could see the commitment, and he really wanted to start as a closer, which most trainers and recruiters advise you against. They're always trying to push you to start at the bottom and work your way up. But he was committed, and so I committed to him. And in his first 2 years, he's earned over $400,000 and quickly became a top closer on one of the largest campaigns in the industry. So take that, recruiters. How about that? He's also a great friend of mine. I've met him in person, and he's one of the most charismatic, caring, genuine people you can meet in this space. It's been an honor to be a part of his journey, and we're going to continue on. What's a couple more years, right? So Alvaro, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you being on. I think you're an inspiration to so many. So what are we going to be talking about today? Catch me up.
Yes, JD. So I think for me, I think one of the things that I feel like we should discuss today is mostly about lifestyle design,
Mm,
how not to lose kind of like what got you in the space in the first place. I feel like because obviously I continue network with other people, with other search professionals and things like that, and that's something that I personally found myself in, and I have heard other people kind of like finding themselves in that chasing the commission, chasing that life, like like next month again and again and again and again and again. It gets to a point when you're like, okay, so what's next, right?
right.
Like so I think that's what I think would be valuable, not only to me obviously, but
Yeah.
to everybody that is watching right now, especially people that are starting out, or even they are 1 year 2 years into this awesome career.
Yeah. It's a topic that a lot of our alumni students have been coming to me with lately. We tend to attract people that don't eat, sleep, and breathe sales. A lot of the other camps, this is all they do. They train and they grind and they train and they grind, and that's their whole life. It takes them a long time to realize that what next moment, right? Uh, there's many different ways to tackle this, and there's kind of two sides, right? There's one, how do you stay motivated? Because, you've surpassed every single goal by a landslide from when we first started out, right? It's probably went better than you could ever imagined.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
you
Oh
had
my.
big goals starting out, but you surpassed all those goals. So I remember, hitting the 10K and kind of looking around and being like, oh, I thought it would be more. And then, oh, the 20K, that would be life changing. And then kind of, like, I don't know what I was expecting, like balloons falling out of the sky or what. And then,
Right, right, right.
30K and 40K. And I've always kind of been let down by those accomplishments. And, I'm someone that I love elements of sales. I love connecting with people. I love the problem solving. I love, the ability of independence to, set your own paycheck and grow and improve, and learning one thing that you can apply on the next call, and all of a sudden you see a bump in commission. I love all those elements, but to say that I'm a diehard salesperson is just not true. There's so many elements in my life and so many things I want to do. And so I think starting with, how do you stay motivated? I
Right.
think it's, for me, like, one of the biggest thing is I feel like we always have to be in pursuit of something, right? And that doesn't always mean like more and more. But I feel like what happens with some students is they come into UCM, they hit their goals, and then a couple things happen. Either they kind of get lost and they're not sure what next, or they change their energy. So I've seen a lot of students, what they do is they get to a certain point and then the mindset shifts and it's like, okay, don't screw it up, don't screw it up, don't screw it up. And that energy shift, right? All the mind understands is screw it up,
Right.
right? And so the the mindset and being aware of what got you to where you are, the principles, the things that you can draw out, the foundation,
Right.
right? That foundational energy of pursuit and determination and drive and desire, all of those things have to stay with you, but you have to shift the finish line, right? Because it's not exciting to hit 10K. Probably sometimes you'd be upset if you hit 10K a month,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
Once you get to
Yes.
that
Yes.
2025, right? The goal of 10K that used to be exciting to you is almost miserable now, right? And so there's a couple things. One, some people go to the path of mastery. They want to expand their circle of influence. They want to kind of get into the nitty gritty. And that's very hard for people to do in this industry because a lot of what's being sold as mastery is really just competence, right? It's just really repetitions. It's what to say, how to say it, when to say it, right? And so for me, what really extended my love for sales was the idea of why. Really picking the topics and looking beyond just performance, but how can I have more natural conversations? How can I say what I want to say in its truest forms? How can I bring more of my personality in? Because sometimes we put this mask on and we put this voice on, especially in the beginning,
Right.
and we realize that, hey, I'm a different person on these calls than I am at home. And so for me, it was, how can I be my true authentic self while still having the ability to influence people? And that kind of extended because I had more natural conversations and I had things that I wanted to talk about, and I was willing to go kind of off-roading on sales calls because I was interested in the person, right? And so my curiosity of psychology and development and human behavior extended my shelf life in sales. But even that, I still hit a wall. I still had these, is this all there is moments? And it sounds like that's kind of where you're at now, right? Is, what's life after sales, or what's the next chapter of sales? And I think
Right.
going back to the pursuits, I think like I've noticed your fitness journey, right? I know
Yes.
that
Yes.
that brings you a lot of joy, and again, it's kind of starting at the bottom again. I think it's important when you get good at something to replace or add in something where you're at the bottom of the totem pole again, whether it's,
Mm.
boot camps or jujitsu or chess. I think, you know, man needs to struggle. They need to, they need to be humbled. They need to start at the bottom of something, whether it's a dance class or a new business or a new venture. But what I would do is, it's not just enough to struggle, right? Like,
Mhm.
you've added this fitness thing in and I see you moving and I see the results. And I'm really proud that you've done that, because I think a lot of the things we can get tunnel vision and think that only role plays and only, call reviews are the only way to improve your sales performance. But for me, like, it's all the things that I've done outside of sales that have really had an impact. The conversations, the relationships. Having a relationship can teach you a lot about sales, right?
Absolutely.
Traveling has taught me a lot about sales, and learning from other people has taught me a lot about sales. So I think there's something about adding challenges into your life. I've noticed that, when you're starting at the bottom again, that's when I see the fire. We've talked many times, one-on-one about that, reigniting that fire. And it's
Right.
very hard to get excited about going from 25K a month to 28K a month, right? Like, that doesn't reignite the fire. It's nice. We'll definitely
Right.
take more money, but it has to be something where there's a passion and a pursuit, right? Like,
Mm.
the way I break it down for a lot of students that I've been working with lately is kind of the piece, right? We need profit. And right now, sales is a great profit machine for you,
Mm.
right? But we also need a sense of purpose, a sense of passion, and a sense of pursuit. Now, I feel like a lot of people have given us the wrong advice and the idea that all of those things have to be monogamous in that they all have to fit into one. You have to do what you love and your job, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And it has to be purposeful and it has to be this and it has to be that. And I don't think that's true. Right. Like, look at your musical career, right? It's something that I know you have a lot of passion for, but you looked at that and said, this is not going to get me right now where I need to be profit wise. So there was
Exactly.
a split, and it's not one is better than the other. They both give you something, right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure your relationship gives you a sense of purpose, right? So we
Absolutely.
split these things up all the time, but we've been brainwashed to think they all have to fit in one,
That's
right? And
actually
so
a great point. And actually, one thing helps the other, by the way, because when I started
absolutely
in sales, it helped my singing. Just so that you know, it's crazy how it works.
love
So it's like it is
it.
true though. I got more confident.
Absolutely. So I think taking these ideas and saying, okay, well, I know I need to be challenged, right? Now, I know that, all right, well, something of my awareness said that I have to focus more on my fitness, right? And looking at that circle of life, right? It helps to kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen the circle of life, but it's career,
Oh yes,
finances,
kind of like the Ikigai
relationship.
type of deal.
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
absolutely.
yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, well, I noticed that my fitness score was a little bit down, right? And I know my future self would want me to be fit and healthy and happy, right? So looking at those areas, you can say, okay, maybe it's not so much even like career wise or financial wise, but what do I feel is lacking or in deficit in my life? And how can I allocate more to that, right?
Interesting. I see. And is that something that, like, as you are thinking about that, do you also think about like long term? Like, for example, when you're sitting down and you're thinking of, okay, in the 5 years,
Right.
I think this is gonna help me do X, Y, and Z. Or do you feel more like it when you think about it is more like a short term thing? It's like, okay, I need to take the actions now to be
Right.
able to do X,
It's a
Y, and
great question. And I think it really depends on the person.
Z.
So I usually think about 2 years out.
Okay.
After that, it starts to get a little cloudy for me.
Okay.
And I know that I'm quick to adjust as well.
Right.
So if you're someone who craves a lot of certainty or the vision is clear longer than that, that's
Mm,
great. But I've talked to a lot of people where that kind of hangs them up and it gives them a lot of
yeah.
uncertainty. Like, I don't know.
Correct.
And
Correct.
what I think is a valuable exercise is having the conversation with your future self, right? Because the efforts that you put in today, you're not going to reap the benefits, right? It's your future self, right? And so when you go to the gym today, it's not going to be you that benefits from that. It's going to be your future self, right? And
Correct.
so what I like to do is if I have a vision that really excites me, let's say I want to start an e-commerce business or I want to be an investor or I want real estate, that's great, right?
Mhm.
Plug that in, but also know that that can adjust along the way, right? The pursuit should not be made for accuracy, right? So I
Okay.
think a
That's a
big
good
problem
point.
is when we set our goals, we are setting them for accuracy and truth. And a lot of the truth seekers that I meet are miserable, right? When really, for me, like, I don't want to be accurate in my goals. For me, a good goal has two things. One, it has some urgency, right? It gets me that extra little bit of fuel, like, oh, like I need to get out of the gates. Like this is an aggressive goal, right? So I have
Right.
no time to waste, right? And then the second thing is that it inspires action. So action inspired action. In that one, it gives me a clear path forward. And two, I feel excited about the pursuit. I don't care if I hit 60% of that goal or 120% of that goal. For me, what it is, the goal in its place is not, there's no value in the accuracy of the goal. It's does it inspire urgency and inspired action, right? So I think of that, right? And if I'm not clear, if I don't have that bullseye, right? If I don't get excited about being a Hollywood actor or a singer or, something,
Right.
some business or real estate, then what I do is I broaden out, right? So again, in that conversation, it's pretty likely that Alvaro in 5 years doesn't want to be 60 pounds overweight, right? Like we don't know exactly who we're going to be in 5 years, but it's pretty safe to say that future Alvaro isn't like, oh yeah, eat whatever you want and put on weight, right? Like we know we want to be healthy. We know
Yes.
we want strong relationships and friendships and intimacy and love and connection. We know we want significance and a sense of accomplishment. Like from a broad sense, we know these things. And I'm guessing like Alvaro 5 years doesn't want to be $200,000 in debt unless he's, building $1 million empire and he's leveraging debt, right? But he doesn't want, credit card debt, right? So when you broaden it out, it's like, okay, well, I want to be wealthy, right? And so like maybe I don't know the avenues of wealth, right?
Mhm.
So what I typically do is a lot of people struggle to find the answers, and I think we skip past the question, right? So what I would do is like, okay, wealth question mark. And when I'm putting in my notes, like, and I'm doing reflection, anything I'm unsure of, right, then I would put the question mark. So wealth is important to me, but I'm not sure the avenues. And now the pursuit, instead of the pursuit of wealth, what I'm going to do is the pursuit of discovery of avenues of wealth, right? Like, we have to treat this sometimes like a buffet, and that the first plate of the buffet, you have to try some things, right? And the second plate, now you know what you like and you go for it, right? So if anybody's watching this and they know, hey, I want to make money, but I'm not sure how, that's your pursuit. That's the next chapter is, okay, well, I know that it's business and I know that it's investing, right? This side of the money matrix is
Right.
business and investing. Let's go explore the 7 or 10 or 12 avenues of wealth creation. Or let's start with foundational stuff like relationship with money or understanding the economy, understanding how money works and is exchanged, looking at my beliefs around money, because I know that my future self, right? If I can't get the bullseye pinpoint, I know that building foundation and taking steps towards, I'm not going to regret, right? Same with taking steps towards my health and my
Right.
well-being and my happiness and who I am and the significance I get from accomplishment. Like none of
Mhm.
those things are going to go to waste. And as I start taking steps forward, I can start narrowing it down of like, you know what? I'm not really, for me personally, I'm not really drawn to crypto. I'm not drawn to stocks, not because I don't think that you can make money off it, because I like more tangible things. I like a business. I like solving problems. I like real estate. I like
Right.
the tangible. So I know for me, if it is investing, it's probably going to be investing in business and real estate, right? And
Mhm.
so as I uncover these things, now I can start to narrow down, right? But I think of it like kind of like a radar on a ship. Like I'm not looking at the radar and being like, oh, there's only 3 ships in the ocean. That's
Mhm.
like within my radius, that's what's there. So I have to move forward with that uncertainty, knowing that I will uncover more as I go.
I see. So being okay with that uncertainty.
Yeah,
That's
of course.
that's one of the keys that
Yeah,
I hear
because
you saying.
another word for uncertainty is variety, right?
Mm.
And variety is a human need. Because even if you have a false sense of certainty, let's say for sure you want to be, a real estate broker, for sure, like you're 100%. What's to say in 5 years, right? You're not having the same conversation with me and being like, I don't want to do this anymore,
Yeah.
right? So it's a false sense of certainty to look into the future. We can go broad and say, I want to be healthier and I want more wealth and I want to be able to retire. Those are probably going to be foundational, but
I see.
you're going to be a different person in 5 years. So that
Right.
false sense of certainty of like, this is what I want to do forever, right?
Right.
You're going to end up in a situation kind of like where you are now, where you're going to have to think about the next chapter. But we're more adaptable and agile than we believe we
Mhm.
are, right?
Okay. I actually that helps a lot. And I guess for like because obviously you have this side which is, what is giving you the profits now, right? Which
Right.
is in this example sales, right? And obviously you are working towards something, but at the same time when you're looking in the future, how much time do you allocate for that future version of yourself? Because I feel like that's sometimes where I get caught up. Like I
Mm,
get caught up too much on the working hard, showing up, being disciplined to kind of like accomplish the short-term goal, and then
right.
I get distracted with the end result, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to look at it. One, I would always just advise start small, right? So one exercise that I've been giving people lately that I think is extremely impactful, and I do it myself, is the 45 minutes to 100 million, right? And the 100 million is just a placeholder. But for most people, what it does is challenges their brain outside of the realm of what's possible. Right? Like 100 million is a significant amount of money. And most people, if you ask them how, their first inkling is, I don't know. Right. And we have to break through the response of I don't know, because I don't know should be, well, I need to find out. Right. And so 45 minutes a week, right, is not an unreasonable amount of time. Right. If that's going to affect your performance, then all of a sudden we need to look at time management. Right.
Right.
So what I want to do is, we're not taking from the middle of the day or your prime time or taking away from, right? So what it's going to do is the mind's going to not be alerted that this is a risk or this is taking from. A lot of times we think it's taking from this and it's going to affect, right? There's a good chance that 45 minutes, or maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a half hour, but start with kind of like when you go to the casino, you're not betting your mortgage, you're not betting, you know,
Right.
what you can't afford to lose. And we
Right.
have to think about time as a resource as well. So you bet the time that you can afford to lose. If you lost 45 minutes and you were no further ahead at the end of the 45 minutes than when you started, right, then that's not a big deal, right?
Correct.
But what I like to do is think about it, because when you stretch it to 100 mil, there's only a certain amount of ways that you can do that. And what it does is it starts looking beyond to like massive wealth creation, because the principles in massive wealth creation will apply better to incremental wealth creation,
Mm.
but it doesn't always work the reverse, right? And so what it will do is it will start you say, well, he's $100 million. I have to start thinking about that. And then I might think, well, who has $100 million? Like, how many people in the world? And what you do is you start discovering, you start seeking out information, and then you realize, okay, then, it's business or investing, and it has to be one of these avenues. And then you start learning from those people, and you start taking that, right? It's like
Same.
we tend to start the wealth creation by like picking something. Right.
Right. Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
okay, I need to go down this avenue. And then we get down that avenue and it's like, oh shit, we're, 3 miles in, and we realize that that's not it. Right. So what I would look at first is the foundations of wealth, the rules of wealth. Like, how does money work, and who has it, and where is it being exchanged, and what are the richest people on the planet doing? When we take that, we can extract the principles, and then we can apply to the different avenues. Right.
Interesting.
So to answer your question, start with something that seems so minuscule that there's
Mm.
no resistance to it, and it would seem foolish not to do it, right? And start with that. And what will happen is one of two things. Either you get a lot done in that time, and for right now, that's the perfect amount, and you continue,
Right.
or your brain will be like, oh, that was fun and valuable. I'm going to do 2 30-minute shifts next week, right? Because maybe 45 minutes was long, right? I'm going to do 2 30-minute, right? And then it
Right.
might be 3 30 minutes. And then every day, Monday to Friday, you might be doing 20 or 30 minutes a day, and you build that momentum, right? And you're allocating your time towards that as you start to grow, right? You're buying your time back, because if you
Mm.
look at it, right, your earnings in sales are always going to be connected to time, right?
Correct.
But in the wealth creation, right, you have earnings, you have profits, and you have returns, right? And what that is a movement from time to other leverage, right, where your money is actually the thing that you're leveraging to make more money, right? But I think starting now and just exploring that, right, in activities that you can't lose on, you don't have to bet on a horse, but just moving towards and gathering more information and going into a discovery phase. I think instead of trying to find the answer right now, it would be much more valuable for you to start finding the questions.
Got it. Okay. So just to clarify, then it's like at the beginning, in terms of the exercise, because I think that exercise is very valuable. It is finding 45 minutes
Yeah.
to think about your path to 100 million.
Yeah.
Then you just write it down, and then the next week you start from where you stopped last time, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, you can
Right.
explore it from there, right? Like, you're gathering principles, you're gathering questions, right? You can take little side steps and like, okay, this week I want to learn about stocks, or what is a bond? Or for me, it was like, I didn't understand shorting stocks. Like that to me was crazy. Like, how do you bet against the stock and still make money? So for
Yeah.
that 45 minutes, right? Don't put too many restrictions on it, but for that 45 minutes, I'm just going to put myself in the space of wealth discovery, right? Of financial discovery, of, how the economy works. And for me, like when I started learning about the economy, I realized that there's people, it's like chess, right? If I just jump on a board and start moving the pieces, I'm going to get destroyed. And people don't realize that money is a game. There is gameplay, there is strategy, there is rules. A lot of people are just moving pieces, right? Like you notice when crypto took off, how many people just jumped in and
Right.
they explain the basics. And I've talked to people that are like, oh yeah, I don't have any money for this, but I have crypto. So they have zero in the bank account. They have 2,000 in crypto, right? And they can't access it. So it's like people hear, oh, someone's making money, I'm just going to throw it in, right?
Correct.
Instead of learning about it and developing in that area, right? Forming the questions rather than just thinking like, oh, if I get into this, I'm going to make money, right? So it's like if you were going to get good at anything, it's how do you learn the fundamentals, right?
Hmm.
Like thinking about music, thinking about sales, right? It's the questions that you start asking that's going to send you on a path of discovery, and then you're going to get some momentum on that, and you'll see that, okay, I can start allocating more to this and less to that because this is starting to overtake that.
Okay. That's actually a great advice. Like I actually have a lot of things that I wrote down that I'm going to start applying.
Right,
Because I
and start
think
small, right?
it's kind of like what they say, right? Like what you don't measure, you never get it done. So I think I need to have some time allocation to actually just that specific thing. Um,
100%. Yeah, it's a
so
principle that I've been using so much with students, and it's this uncertainty of and the feeling of not having the answer, and we get nervous and we kind of avoid it. And it's like, well, it's kind of like if you ask me to review a movie and I haven't seen the
right,
movie, like how am I supposed to review it? Right? Like how are you supposed to know about money and wealth if you haven't pursued that knowledge? Everything that you
right,
know now, you've learned and developed. And so if that is an important factor, and also thinking ahead and knowing that there's an expiry to your sales career, I knew for me
right.
that I didn't want to do this forever. And so I
Mm.
started planting the seeds earlier because again, you don't want to plant seeds when you're hungry. You want to start, you know, I also think of it kind of like the relay race. Like the person ahead starts running well before so that there's momentum. A lot of people that
I
I've seen, they get to the peak and then they start planning for the next. And that has a big drop off. You don't want to start planning or pursuing or discovery because then the pressure is on the answers. Right now, there's no pressure. Life is good. Things are going great for you. Now it can be like an enjoyable pursuit where you're learning because you're interested in things rather than like I need to get out, right? You don't want
yes.
to wait to that point.
Yes. Yeah, no, no, I totally agree with you. Because and I feel like this is something like for everybody watching, like making sales feels so good. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like whenever things are going well, it feels so good that sometimes you actually forget about the other side of things.
right.
Um, I am. This happens to me. You know what I mean? Like, and then the next month you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna kill it next month, and then you just spend all your time killing it, and then you forget about what. It's kind of like you said, like you forget to plant seeds.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
so
It
so
becomes an addiction, like, and I see a lot of people that get their identity from selling, from being a top performer, from being the top 1%. And everything is wrapped in on that. And I'm concerned about those people's future because, we all hit a time like I'm very fortunate and very grateful that I developed my life outside of sales so that if someone told me tomorrow that I could never sell another day in my life is full, and I feel like some of those people are going to hit a wall. I'm reading a book now about a caregiver that, looked at and spoke to some of the people at the last stage of their life and explored some of their regrets. And, one of the biggest regrets was I wish I didn't work so hard. And, that is counterintuitive to all the advice we're getting now because so much of their identity and what they think they're pursuing is tied into being great at one thing. And for me, I never seen it like that. And so, being able to be your true self and being able to be well-rounded in your life and live full experiences beyond. Like, one little reminder before we wrap up is the idea that probably no one at your funeral is going to be like, man, Alvaro, what an objection handler. Like, incredible. You remember the tonality he had on those calls? Like, what a closer. Like, long after, that's not what you're going to be remembered for. And I think it takes some people the regret at the end of their life to realize that life was more than just closing deals. And I hope that people understand that and remember what they got into this for. We didn't grow up thinking like, I'm going to be a top closer when I grow up, right? It's a vehicle to be able to live life. And we forget about that sometimes. And I think we're too busy building other people's dreams. And of course, the advice we're getting, they're happy for us to grind because they have the infrastructure and they profit from it. And they're happy to tell us to sacrifice everything. But, we have to be the captain of the ship, and we have to steer in the direction that gives us a full life.
Absolutely, man. I mean, what a way to wrap it up, man. I have nothing to say, but that's it. That is it.
I love it, man. I love it. Like I said, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. You've set out and over accomplished on every area that you've said, and it means a lot because, especially now, you're an inspiration for people, that are coming in, telling them that they're aiming too high, telling them they got to be a setter for 2 years now, telling them they have to do outbound or they're entitled, and you broke all of those. All of that advice and showed that it is possible. And so it's been an honor to be a part of your journey, and I'm glad we could reconnect and
Absolutely.
hopefully be a part of the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter, man.
Hell yeah. Love
I
it.
appreciate you, brother.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All right, that's it. I want to thank you for watching today, and I hope you received some value from this training session. Make sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell icon to be notified when we release the next training session. If you would like to be featured on a future training session, make sure to join our remote sales community on Facebook. I'll leave a link in the description. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover on a future training session, just leave a comment below. Appreciate you. Onwards and upwards.